Welcome to the Marshall Pruitt Podcast and your Weekend IndyCar listener Q&A show. It is, for the second week in a row, a Thursday evening recording, only many days late, and indeed, just like last week ahead of Milwaukee, jumping on a plane tomorrow morning, flying out to good old Nashville. Have ourselves a little season finale, y'all. I'm still trying to process this. Feels like maybe Fontana season finale era, where end of August, when we truly shut down the season. Feels like it's been a little while. Not saying that it's gone super late recently, first, second week of September, but still just having some flashbacks to whatever that was 10 years ago or a little over, where yeah, hey, here we are going into Labor Day weekend, and that's it. So, yeah, going to hold us a little jamboree at Nashville Speedway. Got to admit, went into Milwaukee knowing that championship's already been salted away. That's done. Nothing to race for, right? This is a meaningless race. The normal context of why we tune in, looking to see who's going to become that champion. There's nothing there. And yet we had this amazing race. Thank you to the sprinkles that led to that caution. Ended up throwing a bit of a wild card out there. Christian Rasmussen and others deciding to pit while the top three stayed out. Their tires expired before the checkered flag. Those who pitted for fresh tires got in front of them. Otherwise, if not for those sprinkles and that extended caution, we were looking at a Alex Palou complete domination of the event. And I don't know if that would have been remembered as fondly, but just sharing that we went into Milwaukee knowing that, again, truly, there's nothing really at stake. That could be something that turned people away. Did not happen. Those grandstands, they weren't completely full. Definitely some heading down towards turn one and such that were covered over with banners. But this is a thing where a heck of a bunch of people came out. It was a really positive vibe, and we got this thrill of a finish. Just mention all that, knowing that a lot of your questions are indeed off of last weekend in Milwaukee. But I just looked to this weekend in Nashville, knowing that the race last year, IndyCar's return after a really long absence, was really good. The quality of the racing generally hailed as incredibly good. Hoping the crowd is stronger than it was last year, but I look to the same kind of thing. We have nothing to fight for, really. Palou's obviously locked into first. Pato is locked into second. He's too many points ahead of Scott Dixon in third to be at any risk. So first and second, they're off the table. But there's a fun cluster between third and fifth, that being Dixon in third, Christian Lundgaard in fourth, and our guy, good old Kirk Kirkwood, in fifth. They're close enough together where third, fourth, and fifth are all effectively jockeying for third. So that's something fun to watch. Then we look, sixth through ninth has a similar thing, and really, if you extend it out to 10th with Scott McLaughlin, if he has a really great day, he could jump as high as sixth. But we have Colton Herta, Marcus Armstrong tied on points in sixth. Then you look just behind them. We've got DJ Willie P in eighth, only 5 points back from them. Felix Rosenqvist in ninth. He's only 6 points away from equaling Herta and Armstrong. So there's this really cool kind of second cluster going for something between sixth and ninth. McLaughlin in 10th. He's 32 points back from Colton. I mean, there's no realistic way he's going to get higher than sixth in the standings, but Scotty goes out and wins, and all those he needs to get in front of finish, not too far, but a decent ways behind him. There's some stuff to play for. Just outside the top 10, you got Malukas in 11th. I think Renus is 12th or so. Maybe that's now Rasmussen, but there's still some fun stuff to play for. But I almost look at this as really the ultimate potential of the year for an IndyCar race. All those things I just mentioned, hey, this is going to be the best career finish for Lundgaard no matter what. Same for our guy Kirk Kirkwood. Same for Marcus Armstrong. Same for maybe a couple others as well. But be honest with you. Does Scott Dixon care about finishing third in the standings or fourth or fifth? He wants to finish as high as he can, but he's not going into Sunday's race thinking points and strategery. He, like every other driver, is just thinking go like hell. There's no real big picture to think about. Only areas where you could muster a little bit of interest. Rookie of the year, right? It's really tight between Louis Foster and Robert Schwartzman. We'll see where that ends up, obviously, but I'll admit I don't really care. They're both really good. Louis is going to be back for sure. I don't know if I expect us to see Robert Schwartzman in an IndyCar again. Whether Prema remains in the series or not, all I have heard for quite some time is that he's miserable and wants to go back to Europe. And so would just say if you're a big fan of Robert, this is purely my own supposition, but if you're a big fan of Robert in IndyCar, enjoy this weekend, because I don't feel like there's a high probability he will be back. But all that stuff aside, we have a little bit of leader circle stuff going on. Who's going to make it? Who won't? I don't know if there's a ton of intrigue there, but anyways, just share all this because when I look at this race, fires off Sunday at 2 p.m. on Fox, I think of this as 2 hours of just unadulterated, don't care about anything else, watch 27 drivers go on the attack, hopefully have a lot of fun, and see how high they can go in the race. Forget the rest. Maybe if something intriguing happens in Rookie of the Year or Leader Circle, maybe that will become an element. But I just like the idea of how we finishing the year, since really there's no major score to settle. Let's just enjoy a motor race. And I think we got the right drivers who know that that is really for all them. They're just trying to finish as high up as they can, to finish as strongly as possible, and then go into the off season. So as always, say big thanks to y'all for sending in your questions, to our pal Jerry Sudduth, who grabs all them, puts them together for us, and to our long-standing show partners at the Justice Brothers, justicebrothers.com, makers of just immaculate automotive chemicals, lubricants, and cleaners, and torontomotorsports.com, purveyors of just essential modern motor racing memorabilia, hats, t-shirts, books, models, stickers. Pay them a visit at torontomotorsports.com. Hit one or two more things before we dive into your questions. First, I want to say a huge thank you to the Prue Day, Christy Pradena in particular, for organizing everything. Last weekend in Milwaukee might have been the largest turnout of Prue Day members outside the Indy 500. Great to go and visit and spend some time. Saturday evening at Holler House, and the country's first certified bowling alley. And speaking of alley, celebrate Allie's birthday there as well. But just really cool to spend some time there. And huge thanks to Christy for doing her amazing organizing of that. We launched formally, publicly, the Wilson documentary, Badass Wilson, His Life, His Legacy. Y'all were the first to learn about that here. And if you happen to be at Milwaukee and be there at the Prue Day gathering at Holler House, y'all were the very first to see the trailer Saturday evening that we ended up showing on Sunday. Weird, just weird to be in a press conference and sitting up where the people ask you the questions, having sat in hundreds of these out in the audience being the people asking the questions. So strange to be up there, but anyways, career progression, I guess, maybe, I don't know. But really thankful to everybody who took part, friends and partners at Coforce, Johnny Baker, my partners in making this, IndyCar president, IMS president, Doug Bowles was there, sat with us. And then we had our friends, Dario Franchitti, close friends with Justin, and then Will Buxton, who covered Justin when he was a young Cub reporter. So big thanks to everyone there and all those who came out to show support, with Sunday being the 10-year anniversary, and know that the Wilson family was watching as well. So just a heavy day, but powerful day, and really thankful for the positive response from so many. So now we have to dive into production and actually make the thing. So that was really cool. Saw a bunch of folks there at the event. Great to see Linus Lundqvist. Had a great conversation with him on Sunday, and he was like levitating, having just come out of a meeting with a team owner. Obviously, you wait to see how things pan out and where they go, but it sounded like there was some really positive stuff being discussed. Met with a number of folks, put out that story about Prema needing new funding to continue, and have connected a couple of team owners who I think would be a perfect fit to talk with them. So know that some talks are happening there. What else? Lots of silly season stuff has cropped up. I'll see if I can get this done before I get on a flight tomorrow morning. We've gone into Stranger Things silly season. This was meant to be pretty darn boring. Wrote about that, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. Not much movement was expected. And yes, some folks are losing their mind. Mentioned, I think, last Thursday in the episode that towards very end that had a team owner, team principal, whatever it was, mentioned, hey, heard that Colton Herta might be going to Formula 2. Like, come on. No, it's the dumbest thing ever. And yeah, get to Milwaukee and want to talk to some folks about that. And folks who normally are open to talking all of a sudden aren't. Oh, there's a bit of a vibe shift. Then I talked to a team owner on Monday, and I'm like, hey, have you heard this thing? They said, yeah, not only have I heard it, be on the lookout within the next 2 weeks for a press release. And I'm like, what? For real? So, not saying it's happening, just saying that I will not be surprised if it happens based on, again, some kind of mood and vibe changes I have experienced directly, but also some thoughts from someone who's usually pretty darn in the know. So, again, we'll see what happens there. Seen this, read this, I'm sure, but the whole cascade of possibilities. If Colton is going to F2 to try and earn his super license, to then potentially race in Formula One, there's no guarantee he'll earn a super license, but if that were to all be cemented and announced, that DJ Willie P, assuming he isn't retained by Penske, it's my assumption that he won't, but as of today, I've been checking in and there's been no word about nothing. Hopefully they'll decide things or share things, reveal things here in the coming days. But no communications plan is in place that I'm aware of. But nonetheless, DJ Willie P moving to Andretti, Power, Kirkwood, Ericsson. I don't want to lose Colton. I hate the idea of him going to Europe, especially culmination of a season that has not been all that was hoped for. I don't know if that's the changeover time that you'd consider to be best, but nonetheless, a really motivated Power. Rejection's a powerful thing. So assuming he is rejected and is looking for work, and is wanting to go there, could be interesting. What else can I tell you? Silly season stuff. And again, I realize a lot of this has been floating around, so not pretending like much of it's brand new. But Dennis Hauger, I've been told by everybody that he is going to Juncos Hollinger Racing. I think somebody who is said to be a reporter, I don't know, tweeted something to that effect that it was a done deal. Happened to speak with the team last weekend and said, hey, boy, lots of folks tell me it's a done deal. I don't know that to be the case. And was told, well, if it is, we should probably meet first, shouldn't we? What? Yep. Heard the same, read the same. They thought they knew where the rumor came from, but yeah, was legitimately told, like, we'd kind of have to sit down and talk about this first in order for it to become an actual thing, right? So there's that. Would say I've had more people tell me he will be headed to Dale Coin Racing on a 1-year loan. What else can I tell you? Oh, we've had the whole Alex Palou thing. The one thing I'll add to that, assuming you've read all about it, of him potentially being courted by Red Bull and so on, and despite Helmut Marko saying in the Austrian press, no, not true, isn't true, etc., and that's a no BS guy, and Red Bull Communications saying no, and Chip Ganassi saying no, and Alex's agent saying no. One of the things as a reporter that you have to be mindful of is sometimes when folks come to you with stories, you get to know folks, you build a level of trust with certain folks, and then there's some other folks where you never quite get there. You never know their full motivation. So you might get told fantastical things. Depending on who's telling you that thing, right? Like the person who told me to be on the lookout for a press release in the next 2 weeks on the Herta to F2 thing. Could be wrong, right? But the person telling me that, I can tell you, is golden. Cool. I take what they say with complete faith. Doesn't mean everything they say will happen ends up happening, but I have zero question about the character or the intent of that person. Can't say that about everybody. So sometimes when folks come and tell you, hey, I hear so-and-so is talking to so-and-so or going after so-and-so, you have to wonder if there's an ulterior motive. All I can say is with the Palou thing, heard similar stuff, would just say that causing disruption, disharmony, or otherwise within the Ganassi camp, there might be some value felt in causing distractions. And knowing that a lot of folks are willing to tell you a lot of things that are sure things, sometimes you just have to question the motivation of the person telling you the thing and what other gain they might be seeking. I'm going to jump into your questions right here just with a little nugget of, depending on when you're catching this, just saying be on the lookout for some news, potential news of further investment taking place within the paddock. There's a potential merger among teams being discussed. Spoke with our guy, Romain Grosjean, because I keep hearing he could be in the mix to return to IndyCar. Had 2 people tell me he could be a candidate for coin, where he spent his, quote, rookie season of IndyCar, that he might be in the frame there. There's a lot going on, y'all. When I tell you, just watch Sunday's race and pure fun and very true. Do we have some drivers who are in their final IndyCar races? Some who might be going away and maybe coming back, or maybe going away altogether. They're more for sure. Some of the paying drivers, whether it's not continuing with their current team or not finding a place anywhere else in the paddock to continue. I'm aware of 1 or more Indy NXT drivers who are potentially in the frame to take some of those seats, bringing a very significant budget. Way more going on than anticipated just a couple weeks ago. So we'll try and generate as much content as possible about it while I'm there, but I don't feel like we're going to have all the answers. But a lot of doors to open, some to close. Whomever your favorite drivers might be, unless you know they're locked into a long-term contract, to be a great weekend to just love on them extra little bit, send them whatever kind things on social media. And yeah, some of those who we've known for a long time, some of those who we're just getting to know, whether it's changing teams or finding themselves on the outside looking in, or maybe some of those who've been on the outside coming back in. Yeah, like I said, we got some stranger things going on, and this is going to be a weekend where, yeah, there should be plenty of movement in many of those directions. All right, let's get rolling here. I'm not sure how long my voice is going to last. Excuse me for clearing my throat, but it's probably going to happen a few more times again. But let's dive in here. Daniel Ingleton, how are you, brother? You say, how refreshing to see a first-time winner for the first time in just over 2 seasons. After a season of lots of similar winners, just felt good to see someone new, young, and very exciting take the challenge to the established names. And then also our friend Ken Anderson says, I propose we initiate a new drinking game. During the podcast, you take a drink each time the camera cuts to Raz's in-car, and one of the guys in the booth audibly reacts. I must admit, I found the situation quite tense. Let's see, Taylor Solmos, Christian Rasmussen, probably a top pick for 2026 Indy 500 winner. Got a few more. Actually, no, we got one more ECR question here, so why don't I read that? Jill Zavella Hunter says, I hope your family's doing well. Thank you, Jill. Right back at you. Don't know your family, but hope they're doing well. She says, not so much a question, more of a comment. I really noticed after Rasmussen's win that the ECR team seems very focused versus me-focused. Team-focused for ECR is Jill's point. Heard it from Rasmussen, Rossi, and Ed Carpenter. It was really welcoming to see. Says, fellow MTV Challenge fan, by the way. Well, double wishes for the wellness of your family there. Says, if you've not watched this season, it's great. We haven't. We've been saving that with, admittedly, me and this stupid job where I jump on and off of planes and I'm gone a lot during the season. We've been waiting to have some proper couch time where we can dig in and watch a lot of episodes. So, yeah, this is... The Carpenter team has always been, if there was a ranking, Jill, for the most kind of blue-collar, lunch pail, no pretense, no nonsense, that's them. It has been them forever, and it's one of the many things that I appreciate about them and their culture. So to see Rossi run to victory lane to congratulate Christian, right? He's 4th place. So not even on the podium. It was his best finish of the year, but still, hey, he's the vet. Now in his 3rd IndyCar team, you know, the pup just won. That could absolutely land with another veteran in a very different way. To your point, go towards me right away. Damn it. I'm here as the vet, as the big name, and this kid just beat me. You know, even though I just got my best result of the year, you can see where, again, some others might not have reacted that way. But what does this guy do? Because obviously he's very keen on Christian, and Christian's a great kid. He runs to victory lane and doesn't just say congrats and pat him on the head or give him a quick hug and then leave, but stays and connects with him and talks and flips his visor up and makes a very real eye-to-eye connection, right? That's what stood out to me. That's a real bond. That is, to your point, the opposite of me, but that is the team. That is a we mindset. And I love that throughout the team, whether it's Brent Harvey or Tim Broyles or run down the list, like it's just a bunch of super solid people who are all about each other and aren't looking for microphones and cameras and spotlights. It's the opposite of who they are. And so for that, yeah, big appreciation. Taylor, your question, Christian, Indy 500 winner pick. I don't know if I'll put him at the top because holding on to a car like he tends to do for 200 laps is a challenge around Indy, but he was amazing there as a rookie. Performance like you wouldn't believe this year, and I mean, he is for sure someone we should look to and expect big things from there. Would say to Ken's point of the drinking game, every time Christian's crossed up and showing crazy car control on an oval that leads the booth to react, that's the part for me of all the off-season takeaways. If there's the belief that this is the right time for it within Ed Carpenter Racing, I hope it is, because I see it as the right time for sure. The need to get Christian to understand that his ability to drive at 102% seemingly at all times, it is phenomenal. It is otherworldly. We said this about Pato, and look at what he did. He would win like mad and lose like mad. It was huge booms, equally as big of a bust. And so it was this boom, bust, boom, right? And it was this kind of sine wave of results. And while the wins and podiums were great, looking at the championship, that's what people remember. Champions, Indy 500 winners. Pato becomes more effective. He is second in the championship this year. Best season-long performance of his career. Because he has smoothed out the highs, smoothed out the lows. His general performance is really high, but there's no huge crazy peak or valley. And so not driving at 102% at all times is the key to seeing Pato's growth as a championship caliber driver. He can do exactly what Christian does. Alex Palou can. Run down the list of the finest drivers in IndyCar. They can all do the same thing. It's those who've gotten a few more years of experience or had a team owner bark at them or a teammate who cared about them say, hey, phenomenal what you do. Let me show you a better way. And it might not be as fun. And it might not be as crowd pleasing. And the booth, the drinking game will kind of be lost because the booth is not going to be going, oh my God, he held on to it again. But guess what? You're going to be fifth in the championship or third or maybe fighting for the title itself. But that comes from agreeing that 98 to 99% is actually a really good place to live at all times. And if you can make that 99.2 or 0.5 or whatever it is, you're going to be in a phenomenal place. But the risks involved with living at 102% at all times, there are no champions who drive at that level at all times. There's just not. And so this is the part to close on this here. And Daniel, for sure, great to see a new winner. He could do it again this weekend. How phenomenal would that be? A double winner. Or Rossi, right? Just for Ed Carpenter Racing to show that, hey, we're in the game again. But this to me is the big development item for ECR with Christian. Hey, let's talk about this. Let's look at ways. Let's go back through your in-car. Thinking mostly on ovals, but, he hasn't made a bunch of friends on road and street courses at times as well, but let's go back. And when I say forensic, I don't really mean forensic, but in that mindset of let's go back through your in-car. Let's watch every race. Let's look at the decisions being made here. And yes, you're halfway through the stint and you were close to that car in front of you. And so coming out of the hairpin, you decided to really stick your boot into the throttle and you got a great launch off the corner, but look at that correction. Think about what we just did with the rear tires, of taking some life away from them. And now let's watch the rest of this stint. And hey, you're not going to pit for another 18 laps, but see, We're 8 laps from the end of the stint and you're running out of grip. Why? Hey, what if we didn't do that hairpin at 102%? Aha. Light bulb moment. And again, this kid is crazy smart, so don't get me wrong. It's not like he doesn't know how he's driving or what to do. But I just do believe for his future benefit, you hear folks talk about it's way easier to try and slow a driver down than it is to teach a driver to speed up. It's not true. It's almost impossible to teach a driver to speed up. You can find more speed, but if they don't have that outrageous speed, like a Rasmussen, a Colton Herta, and so on, you're never going to make them into a Herta, a Newgarden, and so on. It is not easier to slow a driver down because what has been their nature at 102% in this case, you're not just saying, hey, try a little less hard. Person goes, oh, okay, and they just magically do it. It's not something they do naturally. So this involves, okay, we are actually going to have to work at this. What can we do to have you drive the car in a slightly different manner? If you're in this kind of pure reaction, lizard brain, amazing space, flow state, in the zone, we might have to work on having you come out of that and be a little more intentional in some places. And maybe you surrender 1/10 of a second per lap or 1/2 a tenth or something. But where could we do that? Where it actually benefits you, has you crossed up less, puts you at less risk of hitting walls or other drivers, prolongs the lifespan of your tires, saves a little bit more fuel, because, and I know none of those things sound exciting, but that is exactly what Alex Palou is doing to destroy everyone for championships in 5 years. It is something Pato has had to come to terms with, that, okay, like, dude, Pato can drive at 105% at all times, okay? We've seen this. We know this to be true. We don't see the wild demonstrations like we once did, but guess what? We're also not talking about P7 Pato, P8, P6. We're talking about second place in the championship and someone you have to be afraid of just about everywhere we go. I'd rather see that for Christian. He's only in his second year. He's a baby. He's so many years ahead, but I'd rather see that become his future than, hey, remember that guy who, boy, he went like hell on occasion and had some good results on occasion, but, you know, never really rounded into title contention shape. There's a lot of folks who fit that category. So I hope ECR, I hope Rossi is willing to be that sage mentor, big brother. I hope Christian as well is open to this. I'm telling you, with just a mild adaptation to how he does things now, we're talking about a guy who is going to scare the poop out of the perennial championship contenders, but it will take some very purposeful modifications. All right, that is a nice block there on our most recent winners. Why don't we see how many we can get through here in another 20 minutes or so, and don't laugh at me if and when I run over. Lynn, you said, what an amazing Sunday in good old Milwaukee. Crowd was awesome, atmosphere was amazing, and you can tell from the TV, especially when Raz passed Palou. Yes, the cheer was just wild. So, you knew folks knew what they were witnessing. That's the thing that I appreciated heavily here, Lynn. It wasn't just that the leader was being passed. It was like, oh, wow, this is special. And Lynn goes on to say on Palou, how amazed were you in his drive on Sunday? If he continues this on ovals, he will be unstoppable. This was the year of Alex Palou oval driver, on top of everything else that he's done. But the drive on Sunday Not a surprise, not a shock. There was nothing there that stood out to me as like, oh my goodness, because we saw him do that at Iowa, right? He led dang near the entire thing, won it, like pretty awesome. We've seen him be special at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but Iowa was really the aha, say it with your chest, Alex Palou. The thing that blew everybody away, I would say more than Raz's victory on Sunday, the single thing that had folks just mouth wide open, I can't believe what just happened, was Alex Palou's run for pole position on Saturday. That first lap being the only driver to crack 163 miles an hour on that average. Dipped down just a tiny bit on the second lap, whatever his average ended up being for the 2 laps together of, I think it was 162.9. But so we had David Malukas, who put it on pole, and he was a half mile an hour faster than anybody. So that was already like, wow. Palou goes out and doesn't improve upon that by a tenth or two. It was like, again, 0.7 of a mile an hour. It was massive. And just the truly hardened journalists, just, you talk about audible reactions. I was laughing. That's the only way I knew how to process this, because it wasn't just, oh, hey, he pipped David Malukas to pole. It was, what on earth? This was almighty. And so, yeah, that to me is probably the biggest takeaway. And I heard so many folks mention, like, can you believe, did you see what? Saw Alex outside as he was walking from receiving the Pole Winners Award to go into the media center for the press conference, and I cursed at him a little bit, all in jest, but like, dude, you're ruining this effing kid's dreams talking about Malukas. And he kind of laughed and basically said, I know, but it's not often that we see something like the last reaction I can recall like that was Schwartzman's pole at the Indy 500, where you go, again, my mind cannot even accept what I just saw. So Alex being on pole, not a surprise. Alex being on pole on a short oval and by destroying people and doing it, that was the takeaway, Lynn. So if that is his new norm, yeah, I really hope the Andretti Globals, Arrow McLarens, Team Penske's, and other teams have a very, very productive offseason, finding whatever remaining bits of research and development-based speed. I hope they have an amazing offseason, because if it's anything similar to what it's been like this year, with as good as Ganassi has been, with all they've found and put up against what everyone else has, unless those other teams really find some amazing nuggets, and or the Ganassi team goes in the totally wrong direction and shows up next season with just wrong and slow cars, this is only going to get worse. So finger and all appendages crossed. Neil Doiker, how are you, brother? You say, I'm starting to like Marcus Armstrong increasingly. What exactly were they trying to accomplish with their pit strategy? Did Schenck not expect he would sink like a stone? I don't know. This being the leaving Marcus out when everybody else had pitted, and knowing that Marcus didn't have much time left before his fuel tank would run dry, I don't know. I believe Schenck said they were trying something. I don't know what that was by chance. Sometimes when you make a mistake, you say that. I'm not saying they made a mistake, but I don't know if there was a radio communication issue, if there was, again, something weird, or if they just thought there was going to be an immediate yellow again, and they would sneak in and pit, and maybe everyone else would. But with him leading and knowing that he'd have to pit soon, even if there was a quick yellow, the timing of when he'd have to come back in, Neil, is the part where I think we'll be scratching our heads in perpetuity, because even if there was another almost immediate yellow, everyone else had just pitted. I don't think many of them would have thought to pit again. So all that would happen is he would pit in the lead and come out not in the lead. Granted, maybe not sink like a rock. Maybe come out, who knows, halfway through the field based on how long it took to get in, get service, and how long it took the pace car to bring the field around coming out of turn 2. But I don't understand that one as well. And I also realized that I think I just need... When I saw it happen, my immediate thought was that was either a mistake, and just for whatever reason he didn't get the call, or something happened, who knows, or the person who made that decision will be told to never make decisions again, and just left it there. Also says, bonus question, Jacob Abel's livery was spectacular. It was. Any chance we will see more major beer sponsors like the old days? It's possible. IndyCar can come out of the year with a strong rating average, up year to year, 28% coming out of Milwaukee, driven heavily by the lift that Indianapolis brought at 7 million viewers, settled in at a 700-ish thousand per race for, I think, the last 5 in a row and 7 of the last 6 or 8 of the last 7 or whatever it is. But 700,000, again, 720, 750, 780, 704, in that 700,000 range, which has been lower than expected, without a doubt. Can't say otherwise. But on average, year to year, if things continue to hold, should still be in the 26, 27, 28% improvement over last year. That's a big thing. You can take to potential sponsors like major beer companies and say, hey, want to come play with us? Where the conversation changes a little bit is once we are done on Sunday in Nashville, you've run out of the ability to do year-to-year comparisons to a different broadcaster. Of course, they'll do the full season of 2025 versus last year on NBC and its parade of channels where IndyCar was shown. But point being is, once we're done, all the benchmarking going forward, every single race that happens in 2026 is comparing against Fox and what it did in its first season. This is a little takeaway here of, wouldn't say concern, but I'm certainly mindful of the fact that was not uncommon for a NBC network IndyCar race to be 1.3 million, 900,000, 1.1 million. Not all of them, don't get me wrong, but it was not totally uncommon to see 7-figure audiences on NBC, or super close. The big Indy 500 number has dragged everything upwards. It's great. Once we get through 2025, whatever the number ends up being of total viewers, average per race across the 17, and so on, that's what the comparisons have to be done against once we get into 2026. Feels like it, again, averaging, I think 9 of the 16 races this year have been in that 700,000 range. If that can be brought up, 800,000, 850, all of a sudden you're able to say, look, we have another gain. Concern is being in the 700s at the majority of IndyCar races this year, not as good as expected. You can say, hey, it's first year. So again, you have a perfectly reasonable thing to say, look, right, new audience, new channel. I'm going to get familiar to that, okay? Want to be able to say that same kind of thing. Hey, big second year growth. Would say that of the many things Fox and IndyCar will be trying to do here, looking at what can we do, how can we do it, when can we race, what are the things we can do, put ourselves on television at times where we are going to have a meaningful increase in 2026 on average. I know that to close on this topic, we're moving in a more and more digital world. I realize that TV audience numbers for many of you is a very archaic thing because I'm sure there's plenty of you who are like, I don't really like sit down on the couch to watch an IndyCar race. I am on my phone, on a tablet, on the move, doing something, but I'm not bound to linear television to consume. But that is still the number one, by the widest margin imaginable, number one way where sponsorship valuation is judged. How many people are watching? Cool. Based on that average number, this is how much money we see this series, your car, sponsoring it, putting our name on it. This is how much I see that number being worth. And for that number to increase and make teams more prosperous, healthier, etc., this is where the more races than not have been in the 700,000 range. I feel very confident in saying is going to be attacked by Fox and IndyCar from a planning and strategy standpoint going forward. Do we alter the timing of the races to be as free of other distractions as possible to try and maximize that number? I think you're going to see a lot more of that. So, interesting times ahead here. And for sure, in courting major beer sponsors, the bigger the audience size, the better the chance. Monica Zaremski asking random logic question. Milwaukee IndyCar threw the yellow due to Callum Ilot's issue in the pits, but did not throw the yellow or close the pits during Alexander Rossi's fire at the Indy 500. Can you tell me why? I think I might know. Ilot's engine was failing on track, and I think there might have been a belief, possibly something spotted by one of the volunteer corner workers, seeing smoke and or liquid trailing from it before he got to pit lane. I'm trying to remember Alexander's issue and whether that was a on-track thing. And I guess I mean the racing surface compared to him pulling down into the warm-up lane. I don't see the Ilot issue as a pit lane specific thing in the way that it felt like Alexander's fire at the 500 was a pit lane specific thing. So I think the caution reasoning was Callum's motor relieved itself out on track, and that is what would have led to it. So that's my belief, and I apologize if I'm wrong. Christopher Carzoli. How you doing, Christopher? Says the Milwaukee race looked very well attended. Fans were really into the race, especially the ending. What can an oval track like Iowa learn from this? And does this give hope to other ovals in hosting an IndyCar race again? The Iowa one's a really tough nut to crack, Christopher, if we're talking about doing things in a familiar way. And we spoke about this right after the Iowa race, so I won't rehash everything, but the time where it's held in the year, it is frickin' hot. And I don't care if you live there and you're familiar with the heat, it's still frickin' hot. And sitting outside baking all day in uncovered grandstands, I don't know if that is the average person's idea of a great day. If we're talking the NFL, again, that's the NFL. That's a different creature. You think about Major League Baseball, unless it's some sort of epic, this team versus that team, you tend to see if it is 90 plus degrees, those are often the MLB games where the grandstands aren't as full. So I would just say the timing is one thing to keep in mind. Middle of July, boy, that's going to be a tough window at all times. But could that be converted to later in the day, night race? I believe there's really solid lighting there, and if not, can be made to be better. But the idea of doing some sort of single day event after hours when it's in theory not as scorchy hot, and make this something where you go, okay, short oval racing is amazing in IndyCar. Iowa's produced some of the best IndyCar races of the century. Truly it has. We go and do this and do it in a way where we don't melt people, and we can make it more of a one-day affair. Come out and see it. We're going to practice. We're going to qualify. And then we are going to start maybe at dusk and race into the night. I think you have a really good product there that's a little more family friendly and fan friendly. If that's the point in time in year where it were to remain, I think those things go a long way. If you can invite a super modified series or something like that to join in, bring folks who might not be 100% IndyCar diehards, but say, hey, come on out, we're going to do some fun stuff in general. I think you got something. Obviously, Hy-Vee spending a ton to bring huge musicians there, and that brought out a decent amount of folks, but Hy-Vee is not coming back. They're not spending money on this. So you're having to go after pure racing fans. You can do that in a way where even the casual fan would say, yeah, let's go do that Saturday night. That might be fun. I don't know. Do you guarantee, or do you, I should say guarantee, do you advertise fireworks? What are things you can do that might be more family minded? So it's not just pure motor racing. So in theory, most of the family would say, all right, cool. There's some things we can look forward to. We can have a second 4th of July type thing, but a week or whatever later. Have some fireworks, have some fun. Granted, hopefully we wouldn't light any of the cornfields on fire. So maybe my idea of fireworks show there is a bad one. But anyways, those are the only things I can think of. Because based on what we saw this year, apologies, y'all, I'm just fighting whatever it is. This thing that I got sick at Laguna is still with me more than a month later. But we saw what Iowa looked like without Hy-Vee's extreme marketing budget and attack. And it was really sad and disappointing. Without completely altering the event and hoping that those alterations, Christopher, bring a lot of folks back, don't know what else there is to do. Stephen Killsdonk, you are wondering if teams and IndyCar do like NASCAR and try and set up their cars to crab or skew the chassis in short ovals. Not that I know of. Stuart Arith, you got a question here talking about rumors and reports about Palou being looked at by Red Bull. I know we covered a lot of that in the beginning. Was just going to add one more component, which should have thrown in up front, but most reactions that I've seen to this have been from fans kind of reacting how they would, not how Chip Ganassi would, saying, well, you know, this is all nonsense. Chip is just feeding us BS. He's interested. They're going to take the money from Red Bull. It's going to be a huge payout. A contract like Alex's would, of course, have some sort of huge number buyout clause. The team would obviously have to say yes. Knowing how contracts went with Alex a couple years ago, how he ended up reneging allegedly on the McLaren contract, staying with Ganassi, signing a new long-term contract, etc. Ganassi backing him in the lawsuit, being put against Alex by McLaren. You would just have to, I think, logically assume Alex's contract does indeed have a buyout clause like most elite drivers happen to have, but that it would be a team-based decision on yes or no. Not a driver-based one. Not as if Alex would show up with a check from Red Bull and say, you have to let me go. Not with how things went contractually with Alex. So, feel pretty comfortable saying any buyout clause involves the team saying yes. Here's the part where the logic falls. So a lot of folks, again, responding saying, well, Chip's, of course, he's going to take Red Bull's money. That's what the average person would do. You've got to understand, Chip Ganassi Racing, centrally involved with the Simpson family, Kiffin Simpson, his family. One of their 3 drivers, very important business involvement with the team. If you want to have some fun with the good old Googs, spend some time on Google, ChatGPT, and learn about the Simpson family of the Cayman Islands. You want to look at who Chip Ganassi Racing is centrally involved with, the Simpson family. Not as if all of their money is freely Chip's money, but you need to understand that the backing and involvement here, one of the world's wealthiest families. I don't know where they rank numerically, a wee bit gauche to get too deeply involved in that. But I think it is just important to share. For everybody who says, well, this is all nonsense, they're just lying, they're just trying to run up the price that Red Bull's going to pay to buy out the contract. Cool. Red Bull says, we'll pay you the 20 million or 25 million or whatever huge number it might be. Great. Not as if that's a small number, but we aren't talking about a team that's hand to mouth. Talking about a team that has central involvement. Sometimes the sponsors on Alex's car happen to be from companies owned or co-owned by the Simpson family. Cayman Islands, the islands in general, you look at how many ways and areas where if you buy oil, if you put fuel in your vehicle, if you buy a car, if you go to a grocery store, if you do this, if you do that, these are all massive, like Earth regional level infrastructure owned by, co-owned by, controlled by, run by the Simpson family. So I don't know where their wealth and investment ranks with a Red Bull energy drink, but I just want to share the Chip's just trying to drum up the price to get his. This ain't that team, and you might not fully understand who they're partnered with. While they want and need all the sponsorship they can get, and I'm not saying Chip is just drowning in money, this is not there are other teams in IndyCar who would sell that contract in a heartbeat for 20 or 25, whatever the number is. This is not them. This is also the reigning champions. They've won 9 races this year, 8 of them won by Alex. In what universe would the best team in any series, in any sporting league, trade their top player, sell the contract of their top player? I'm not talking about the Dallas Mavericks trading Luka Doncic to the LA Lakers. Generational talent, yada yada. That team, not the top team. I'm talking about the Dodgers trading Shohei Ohtani, selling his contract. For what reason? They have very wealthy owners and investors. Best team coming out of last year in baseball. Best player in baseball. Top 1 or 2. This would make no sense, right? No matter who asks. The Yankees want Shohei Ohtani. I'm sure they would. Dodgers don't need the money. They're not going to get rid of their best player, the best in the league. Just where I wish a little bit of logic would come into the conversation. Chip Ganassi Racing has the best driver in IndyCar in a really long time, who is the architect of all of their success. Why on earth would they let that person go? Money. This ain't the team that needs Red Bull's money. So, having seen all of the refutations, if that's even a word, ain't happening. If this were to change in the future, we'll talk about it then. But Ganassi selling a contract, taking a buyout, I just don't know if folks fully understand the picture of this team they're talking about. Where do we go here? We'll close with 2 questions. Cord Johnson, if Prema fails to continue financially, could this be the biggest financial miscalculation in IndyCar? Came in with huge cash, purchased all the equipment and shop, knowing they had no charters, only to run the bank dry in 1 year. Can't think of a bigger financial disaster. What are your thoughts? Don't agree. This has nothing to do with charters. This is the primary backer of the team, bankrolled the entire expansion, allegedly changing their mind and turning off the funding faucet. So, to your point, huge upfront and operational expenditure for the season. But if the person deciding to do that, for whatever reason, allegedly decides to stop, if you are fueled by a wealthy, independently wealthy person, and you do not need major corporations on the car to continue, you're in a great place until that person decides to stop doing that. And you all of a sudden need those major corporations and or paying driver or drivers and or another team to potentially merge with. So would not put this on them for doing anything that I can come up with, Corey, where you're like, oh, that was a big mistake. It's allegedly a change in willingness to support, and that's led to a lot of scrambling and trying to talk to folks about what can be resuscitated to keep them going. Michael Howard, curious about sponsorship, read the article on Prema and the point that they may be done if no partners are found. Also, Junco seems to only have the partners the drivers bring. In today's world, does the team have any responsibility to attract partners? Yes, certainly do. Michael goes on to say it's slowly becoming pay-to-play. Penske, Ganassi, Meyer-Shank, Arlell, Andretti, ECR, Foyt all have partners. Obviously, I'm missing some, just off the top of his head. Yes, teams are absolutely responsible for finding money. In the case of, say, Ted Gelov joining Ed Carpenter Racing, bought into the team, also bringing primary sponsorship. So that's amazing. Hoping that that can continue for many years to come. But I'm sure they're also looking at, hey, are there other entities that might pay for this? So Ted, through his companies, their branding, maybe don't, unless they feel like they're getting so much return on their investment, Michael, that they'd want to. On the Juncos front, the team is co-owned by Brad Hollinger. I'd say he's the majority owner, having done a sizable investment, and I believe none of that investment's really been returned. So he, like the person who funded Prema, a person who billionaire status for sure, but because he's a smart businessman, does not want to keep paying for things out of his own pocket. So they're looking for investor or investors. That part's just smart business. But to your overarching point here, Michael, which we'll close on, yes, teams absolutely have to go and find money unless they have a investor, co-owner, full owner, right? We think of Andretti Global now, Mark Walter, Dan Taurus. They're bringing the money. Gainbridge, that is one of the financial services within their financial empire. We've seen Delaware Life heavily last year on Marcus Ericsson's card. That's another financial services company. Seen some others, right? Not necessarily theirs, but some that are maybe within portfolios that they manage. If that's how things get paid for, and it's not actually just a straight sponsorship deal from an external company they have no ties to other than wanting to pay to be on the cars, that's pretty awesome. Foyt, right, for the 14 car, that has been external sponsorship. The 4 car this year, again, we know, although it's never been confirmed, that Penske's been looking after the funding for the Malukas car. Meyer Shank, right, investor there, but able to bring in sponsors there through links and connections that they have. RLL, they've got an array of sponsors. Driver bringing some, other external, others that are B2B. It's kind of the full flotilla there. So, but yeah, finding money, finding partners, it's a big part of what teams have to do. All right, y'all. As I said, definitely getting this done in under an hour. Go ahead and laugh at me. Look forward to seeing some of y'all here in Nashville and flying home Monday. As soon as I get home Monday, I'm going to drop everything, shower, come back out, and then hopefully sleep for the next 36 hours. Take Tuesday off for sure. So probably won't put out the call for questions until next Wednesday, but hope to see some of y'all there. Hope you tune in if you aren't able to go. And then after that, we'll see hopefully some of y'all at the upcoming IMSA race at Indianapolis. And got a few more races on my calendar, but appreciate y'all. Really, really, really do. So thankful. Been a long time since doing these podcasts was anything other than just something where we all get to come together and talk a little bit about things that we enjoy. And that's my final message for you. Big thanks to Jerry for assembling the questions, to our pals at torontomotorsports.com and thejusticebrothers.com. I'll speak to y'all here next week.